Hey everyone and welcome back. Now in today's video we'll be discussing about the interesting feature of Cloud AutoJoin. Now retry join accepts a unified interface by using a Go Discover library for automatically joining a Consul data center using a cloud metadata. So let's quickly look into the high level working on how exactly this would work. So let's assume that you have a Consul client, you have a Consul server, both are running in a cloud. So let's assume an example of AWS since most of us are familiar with AWS here. So let's assume that the Consul client wants to connect to a Consul server and both of these are recently created. So one way that we already know is you get the IP address of the Consul server, you do a Consul join, a Consul retry and join. So this is one way. However, a better way is by making use of a Cloud AutoJoin. So how this would work is, considering that both are within the supported cloud provider, Consul client will go ahead and connect to AWS. It will ask it to find the EC2 instances that has a tag of name as Consul server. So you can consider this part as a variable where the name is a tag and Consul-server is a variable. So AWS will go ahead and return the IP address of an EC2 instance which has this specific tag of name as Consul server. Now as soon as the client receives this IP address, it immediately goes ahead and does a Consul retry join on this specific IP address and it goes ahead and connects to the Consul server. So this is much more easier way, specifically if you're automating the entire cluster and client related configurations. So let's do one thing, let's jump into a quick demo to understand on how this would work. Now I have two EC2 instances that are running in AWS. One is named as the Consul server, second is named as a Consul client. So if I open up the Consul server and let's go to tags. So here it has a tag of name as Consul server, similar to what we were discussing. Now let's assume that you have a Consul client that has come up and it wants to connect to the available Consul server. So you do not really know what is the IP address of a Consul server. So you can work based on tags. So let's look into how that would work. So I have two tabs open here. First one with the ending IP of 159 is associated with the Consul server. Second one with the ending IP associated with 35 is associated with the Consul client. Now, when you run a command of Consul agent retry-join, this time instead of specifying the IP address, you specify the provider specific information. So here the provider is AWS, the tag key is the name and the tag value is Consul-server. So what it is doing is it is asking AWS to give the IP address of all the servers that has a key of name and the value of Consul-server. And here we know that our Consul server has the exact same tag and the exact same value. And the rest thing remains to be the same. So you have a data dir and you have a retry interval. For the Cloud AutoJoin, this is the unique functionality on top of retry join. So let's press enter over here. So immediately here you see it was able to discover the servers. So if you'll see, the region is US East. It is filtering the instance with this specific tag and it was able to find the instance ID and also the private IP, which is ending with 159, which is nothing but the IP address of the Consul server. So now after it has found the IP address, it is trying to connect, but it is receiving a timeout. So now let's go ahead and start the Consul agent here. So let's switch to root. I'll say Consul agent -dev. And within the bind I'll say 172.31.87 and let's go ahead and start our server. And here immediately now you see that it was able to connect. So you have an event member join. It also states that join cluster completed and the node information is also synced. That's great. So I hope at a high level overview you understood the benefits of Cloud AutoJoin. So let's also look into the inner working on how exactly it works. First step is you go ahead and bootstrap the instance. So in this case, you maybe bootstrap the Consul client and you install Consul there. Once it is up and running, then it will go ahead and query the AWS metadata, which is basically the instance metadata service in AWS. From here, it extracts the private IP address based on the key and value that you specify. And if the IP address is found, then it will go ahead and do a console join. If the IP address is not found, it will go ahead and wait and try again after some amount of time. So let's revise the working steps. First is the instance bootstraps and installs Consul. So this is the first step where you go ahead and start the instance and install the Consul here. Second step is init system starts the Consul with the configuration to join via the EC2 metadata. So how with the help of retry join we had specified a provider within the CLI. Similar thing you can do it via the configuration. So on start, Consul queries the EC2 metadata service with EC2 describe instance to list all the instances tag that are available. If it is able to find the matching instance tag, it extracts the private IP address associated with it and then it does a Consul join. Now for this thing to work, it is necessary that you provide appropriate permission. So let me quickly show you. So for my EC2 instance here, I have a IAM role that is associated with it. And this IAM role has a necessary permission. So if I quickly do an edit on JSON here, you see it has a permission to do a describe instances. So this is one of the important permission. If you do not have this permission, then it will not be able to find the appropriate instances with the matching tag. Now, one of the questions is what are the supported providers? So we have looked into AWS. Are there any other supported providers? And the answer is yes. So if you look into the Cloud AutoJoin documentation, you have details related to EC2 instance. You have details related to Microsoft Azure, Google Compute Engine. You have IBM. You even have DigitalOcean and so on. So all of the major cloud providers that are available, all of them are supported at a Cloud AutoJoin related functionality. Great. So I hope with this you understood the basics and the advantages that Cloud AutoJoin provides.